we can get.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. This is the September 17th meeting of the Strategic Planning Subcommittee from the Lewis Parks and Recreation Commission. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. Cassidy is excused because she is unwell. She was hoping to Zoom, but she didn't know if she was feeling well enough to do that.
Wow.
So we wish her that she's feeling better. Are there any other announcements to be made? All right. In that case, we're going to move forward to the approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes from August 22nd and from September 4th. Thank you, minute takers, much appreciated. Do we have any changes or adjustments to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve both sets?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Thank you very much. So the minutes are approved. So for new business, we have our draft report. I want to thank Marty very much because she tackled formatting it beautifully since I did not have time or skill. She has I took what everybody submitted, made it a PDF, converted it to Word, and then Marty spent a week making it, yes, beautiful and professional. And
Sitting home in my cushy chair, you know.
well, it's much appreciated because this was not a small task. And so very much appreciate what she has done and how it looks. Now, I'm thinking that this is our last meeting before this now goes to then Parks and Rec to review and approve and move forward to Mayor and Council for their consideration. And then after this, we'll be meeting quarterly next year, and we'll be the same group, if that's acceptable to everyone.
So I'd like to point out something.
Take it away.
So in the agenda for today, it cites a report dated September 15. But we had a meeting at Parks and Rec last night, and we keep getting new changes in. So the most current one that Kay just handed out is September 17th, version 2, because we keep getting new items in. And most of the new stuff is not a huge deal, but there is a kind of sort of big deal that I wanted to point out. We learned that the Finance Committee is actually looking to having all the city department heads submit budget proposals for 3 years out. So we changed our short term to 3 years. Long term is 4 to 5 years. So that's can be a big deal depending on what your vision looks like.
To that point, may I suggest that you summarize the forecasted expenditures by short term and then list all the entities that have projected expenditures so that you would have a short-term total and then do the same thing for long-term on one page for presenting to mayor and city council so they can see what you're talking about in terms, without having to go through page by page and look at what's been forecast for expenditures. So, for example, we have one for 1812 Park, list that one, Canal Front Park, all of them under short-term with their estimated expenditures, and it can be a range, and then total that, and then do the same thing for long-term, so that you can.
As far as the budget itself, there's a whole bunch of things that Janet and Julia do to present it, and I don't know.
Okay.
How does that fit, Janet?
So I think some of the things that are in your, mic's on, sorry. Some of the things that are in this packet, what needs to be determined for the budget is where they fall. I don't think all of these things are going to be in the Parks and Rec budget, because if they're capital projects, those are going to be in a different area of the budget. So I think we can certainly do a summary page. The thing that the commission talked about last night was that there are some things that city staff can do. like, there was a short-term goal of power washing the brick walkways at Zwannendale Park. And I think that that's something that probably doesn't need to be in here because it's not a contracted cost, right? It's kind of routine maintenance. So I think we have to go through this and kind of weed out what doesn't rise to a short-term or long-term plan, but is routine maintenance, and we can pull those out.
Now, how and when will that happen? Because that's, I mean, honestly, that seems overwhelming to me, times everybody.
So Julia and I are going to meet tomorrow and start to work on the department budgets. So that is Parks and Marina, the lifeguards, and the marina. So those are our department budgets, but then we can work on this and kind of get through the weeds and kind of just lay out what the short-term and long-term plans are, and then present that as a summary, like an executive summary to this document. I think everybody submitted in different formats. You know, some people gave a little bit more of a vision of their goal and the use of the park versus just listing short-range and long-range plans. So I think that there's definitely valuable information in here for mayor and council. I think we just have to kind of
Rearrange.
clean it up. Yeah.
So let me ask this. This is going to change again, I'm going to guess, possibly, between now and the October Parks and Rec meeting. So is it better to wait until then to do that work? I realize that's kind of closing in on budget deadlines, but I don't know. I don't know when everybody's going to stop working on their material. Or are we going to say, we're done?
I think it's a fluid document. I think that we have to get it in the best shape that we can for mayor and council. So I think I mean, I think if we wanted to take that on tonight and start to go through things and what Julia and I can just mark up as a maintenance, you know, we can certainly do that. It kind of depends on how you want to proceed.
Well, I just want it to be the most helpful and least going back over it, that we can make it. I just don't want someone tomorrow to completely revise theirs after you've gone through it. So that's my only thing.
Well, so one thing I'm still not sure how it all works. So when we actually do our budget.
Can you get it?
I'm sorry.
Because it's
You're on a mess.
it's extra hard because you have the mask on.
I'll lean forward. One thing I'm not sure about, when we actually submit our budgets every year, it's basically an Excel spreadsheet. It has real numbers in it, real dollar figures in it. And so that's another thing, we're going to have to figure out how to do that with 3 years' worth of dollars. You know, and mine will have things like pruning this or that, or, you know, things like that, and planting so many trees, and I'll have specific projects in there with estimates for how much it's going to cost. And so that should marry up subject matter wise, but it's not going to look like this. It's going to look like an Excel spreadsheet. So I'm not sure how that all is going to fit together. Like, maybe the power washing thing won't be in the budget at all, because, I mean, typically when we're asking city personnel to do stuff for us, we don't put it in our budget request. We just call up Allison and ask.
Right, and they don't
Right.
invoice us for that work either.
Right,
so.
right.
Now, see, everything I do goes through, I don't ever call.
Yeah, I don't call
I
directly.
mean,
I call
I-
Julie or Janet and me.
And I
Yeah.
think the thing about capturing it all this way is you don't forget about these things, because you still don't want another department to say, I don't have time for that. Whereas if we're putting things on the radar, then it's known, no matter who's doing it. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to lose all these ideas that everybody has
But you're
come
not,
up with.
you're not going to lose them. What we spoke about yesterday, if I understood, were priorities, that we should give priorities. And maybe this document, there could be themes like lighting, and put everything under that theme, lighting in Canal Front Park, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Maybe, and have different themes to make it a little bit, not clearer, but to shortcut a little bit. Would that make sense to have? Because it's true that there are so many details in here that we sort of get lost.
I feel like everyone has a different way of organizing things in their own brain and in their own reports. So that may be what works best for you, but it might not be what works best for whoever's going to be doing the presenting. You know, everyone does, it's just a different style. But
So, a question as well. Is at some point, and perhaps that's at the next meeting, is it for Parks and Rec, is Parks and Rec going to, the committee going to go through this document as a whole and say, we love this, we love this, we love this, you know, and really establish those short-term and long-term priorities, or pick out what you want, or say, you know, like, we're not going to do this ever, and it gets thrown out, whatever that might look like. Is that the plan with this document with Parks and Rec?
I don't anticipate that level. I mean, I anticipate people being responsible for themselves. And, I mean, I don't think I would feel comfortable
Responsible,
saying to
who
somebody,
is responsible for themselves?
well, each park commissioner, I mean, I don't think I'd feel comfortable saying, I don't like the fact that you want this, I think it should go. I mean,
So
that,
the way Parks and Rec works is each commissioner makes their own decisions. The committee doesn't come together to make.
sometimes, on certain things, yes, but on specific details, I wouldn't have any authority on what should be planted where, or what maintenance issue is a constant need, like, you know, say Zwannendale Park, you know, I don't know that the fountain has a crack, you know what I mean? I don't know that
I
information.
think the difference between the Parks and Rec Commission and other commissions and committees is that each park has a budget that the commissioners, that the park commissioner has put forward for the fiscal year, whereas other commissions and committees, it's the body that, right, they, like, it's that committee, that's their budget. For Parks and Rec, it's a Parks and Rec budget, but each park has a line item in that section of the budget. So I think that's where Kay is saying, I'm not going to say to one of my commissioners that, yeah, I don't think you need that, right?
Right,
Because,
right.
right.
And each park, and just to try to understand the process, so then each park commissioner has a budget, and then that budget comes together to make Parks and Rec's overall budget.
Correct.
So hypothetically speaking, if everybody asks for whatever, and you get to the total amount, do you always get that total amount? Or if, okay,
No.
so how do you then determine?
No, you do not.
If you get 80% of that,
That's
how
a-
how those priorities are drilled out?
That's a
amongst the parks?
discussion you have with cities, you know, city supervisors who help you craft and say, you know, you can ask for that, but it's,
Right.
I
And
can tell you what's
also,
happened to me in the
Yeah.
past, where when we had a budget crunch, I got a phone call that said, well, you asked for blah, blah, blah for pruning, and how about if we prune that down a little bit this year, because, you know, there was a budget crunch. Okay, so we worked it out, you know, I understand budget crunches, been in the government for 40 years.
So
Yeah.
staff reviews the budgets by park, and if there's not
Correct.
enough in the budget, you slash, for lack of a better term.
Or it gets put on for maybe next year.
Right, but it
Or
comes out
whatever
of
the
that
answer
budget, but
is.
you do that individually by park.
Well,
Yes.
and also my understanding too of how this is going to work is that, every park and every commissioner is, in essence, creating what they want, their, short-term, long-term goals for their own individual park. But my understanding of the next meeting would be that we'll get together and we'll talk about this document, not so much to eliminate anything, but to take a look and then possibly prioritize and, perhaps make recommendations that, these projects have merit and maybe these projects should, have consideration first.
So in my mind, I think there's two, and we haven't organized it this way, but there's two sets of things. Most of the stuff in here is just your routine stuff that happens. You have to do pruning, you have to change light bulbs, you have to periodically power wash stuff. There's some big ticket items in there that people want, and some of them are really important that they get done. And some of them would be really, really nice to get done, some of that. So, it used to be, when I first joined, that during budget time, we'd get a list of, capital projects that the various commissioners wanted, and then we'd, as a group, vote on which ones we'd prioritize and go to mayor and city council, and they would decide which ones to fund. I felt very uncomfortable with that, partly because I really didn't know the park well enough to know whether this was an important project or not. I'm better at it now, I know more about it now, but still, that was uncomfortable.
Well,
And I don't know that we would do that. Would we do that? I don't know, maybe we would.
I don't know. I don't know, because, some parks are mature in that they've been in the city's park system for many years, and they have different needs than, say, when the beaches came on board. I was in a negative number because the first year of beaches, there had been no budget the year prior, so I started out in the hole and then had to work that out. And then, really, I think for the most part, other than, maybe another Moby mat or two, and I want to work on the ordinance, I think we're really where we need to be. I don't think I need a giant budget, but there's that period of, you have to make up for that deficit that came from the first couple.
So
first year.
when staff are looking at the budget, they're also looking at what has been expended in the current year. And so if a park commissioner comes in with a $20,000 budget for a park, and they've expended only 50% of the current year budget, we're going to say, well, you're not spending everything in this year's budget. Why do you need to double your budget for next year? And if we can't justify it, because we're the ones that stand up in front of council and say, so if we can't justify it, we're going to cut it out. So we look at that as well when we're doing this.
Right, and there's some things that are expensive, like the coming up with the master plan, developing the master plan for Great Marsh Park. In order to keep that lease, we have to have a master plan. So it might be a big expenditure, but it's got to happen, and then it guides for what's down the road. So the numbers kind of don't really tell the whole story, but I don't think anybody on Parks and Rec would say that wasn't a good way to spend money. We all want it, and that's what has to go in with it, and maybe some of the other expenditures then become less because it's got to go for that project, because the clock is running on that. So it just makes sense.
So I think for purposes of this year, and I think we're struggling with this because it's a shift in the way that we've done budgets previously, because we're doing a 3-year budget and then a 2-year forecast. So I think what Parks and Rec Commission needs to do is start to start to take these and say, okay, what needs to be done for this park in FY '26? Then FY '27, FY '28, and get a cost idea, because that's how the budget's going to be built. So I think that's the task for the full commission, with some things being removed.
So,
But remember, this report goes to mayor and council,
right.
right? So I guess what I'm trying to think through is two things here. The report for mayor and council, so that mayor and council knows what the commission is looking at as far as short-range and long-range plans.
Right.
But then also taking this document and breaking out what's going to be done for each park, year one, FY '26, FY '27, FY '28. And that's going to take some time.
It's going to take some time, and also, one person's going to have to do it. So, I mean, everybody's going to have to supply the information, but somebody's going to have to craft it into a format that makes sense for the process. I like it in two parts, because I like that this is everybody's thoughts, and it's everybody's voice. And then to have, so what I'm hearing is, we have this part of the report, and then we have a financial forecast, something like that, as a second part of it, where every commissioner picks out the things for the 3 years that you've set forward, 26, 27, and 28, and then it's up to us to pick out those items and get them so that they can receive a cost estimate. Does that make sense? Because I don't want to lose the ideas. But if that serves one purpose, it's like, this is what everybody came up with, and then here's what everybody specifically wants to move forward with as a priority. Does that make sense? To keep it like that?
So almost essentially having two reports.
Kind of, like an executive summary financial forecast or something as the summary of it. But to have all of everybody's ideas as well, because I hate to lose the ideas. But we need to have a tool to speed through the upcoming budget process as well.
Yes.
So how do you envision, what is the most helpful thing that we can do? Do you want me to send out a note to all the commission members and say, pick out your most important items for these fiscal years so that we can get cost estimates and put this in some sort of matrix? Is that what you envision? Would that be helpful?
I'm just trying to think this through, because
me
I
too.
just sat in a meeting today with another department manager and was kind of working through this. They have a very different budget than this. So the Finance Stewardship Subcommittee has asked department heads on October 22nd to give a 10-minute presentation on their 3-year budget and forecasting. The commissions and committees will essentially have to do the same thing. So I'm going to be sending out an email to commission chairs and committee chairs and the ex officios to kind of get that rolling. So it's a lift. It's a big lift.
Oh, yeah, especially because one person has to do it, and we're all volunteers, and then somehow funneling material to you, because is there a template that this is to go into? Or is it sort of, because I have the feeling that we are probably outside of the template, just by our structure.
A little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you are, but you aren't. What the department heads are looking at is the department managers are going to look at it by personnel services, contracted services, purchased goods, and there's one other.
Personnel, contract services.
Purchased goods, no, it's CO. Can't, it escapes me right now, but I'm working on
Maintenance?
overload. No. Where this budget is individual, so it's the individual parks, right? So I've got to get that in a format for each park for 3 years.
Based on those 4 criteria.
No, just based on your park.
Okay.
That's what
Okay.
the department managers are working on.
Okay.
So you don't have personnel, you do have contracted services for meeting minutes, you do have,
For lawn care and so on.
right, and that's pretty much set.
Purchase goods.
Fees and dues, seminars and travel, that kind of stuff. And then what each park commissioner is proposing for their park, some of which will be in this document.
So this fall, we'll submit something asking, with our ask for FY.
You sit up,
26.
Marty, to the,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
So this fall, we'll submit our ask for FY '26, '27, and '28, right?
Correct, and
So-
then a 2-year forecast
Oh,
for,
so it'll be a forecast. So we're going to have to go through it again next fall. I mean, we won't be given 3 years worth
Yes.
of, okay,
yes.
okay. That makes me feel a little better. I was getting a little scared whether I could really,
Right, come up with anything meaningful. You want it to be meaningful. If we're going to go through this exercise, it needs to be accurate and meaningful. Otherwise, it's just
Yeah,
numbers to make
no,
people
it's-
feel
it'll be
better, which
the
doesn't
best I can do,
make
but-
sense. But I agree. So you need that by October 22nd. You need that to be complete for Parks and Rec, right?
Before,
So October 15th? Okay. And when is the next Parks and Rec meeting? I'm sorry,
it is the
I'm guessing it's after the
it's the
15th.
14th, it's the following week, the 21st.
Yep, 21st.
Okay, so we have to get this done before our next meeting.
Can I ask a very naive question? Because I'm a volunteer here, I don't understand much
As is
about-
everyone
about
except us.
budget. And I'd like to make a little parenthesis on volunteer. But just, I don't know the cost of the lighting needed for the tennis courts or the playground at the Canal Front Park. So I'm going to have to write to you and ask you, what is the cost? And if I don't ask for new lighting, I mean, I'm sure a lot of these numbers you already have from last year.
No,
No?
no.
So still, I can't do that work.
So
See
I
what I
had
mean?
said last night at the Parks and Rec Commission that for the 1, 2, 3 years, if you need assistance getting estimates, we can do that.
Yeah.
The lighting that's a capital project, and that's going to require much more than just these short-range plans.
But like the bike racks at Canal Front Park, they need to be moved. There needs to be more So I don't know the estimate of a bike rack, but you have that estimate somewhere in your file, since it's there. There's one bike rack at the moment.
So
I'm sorry.
So what you would need to do is identify how many bike racks you feel are needed, and then reach out to Julia and myself, and we would get that estimate.
Can I jump in here?
Please.
Because I don't want to, that's just an example that you've used. That
example.
So, so in our submission, which is,
Page 24.
Page
ooh, thank you
24,
so
yeah.
much.
You are
On
so
page
welcome.
24. The recommendations, one of the recommendations is that, and it's a short term, is that all of the bike parking and pedestrian amenities within the parks be evaluated. So, and on 26, I think, yeah, that to assess the current bike parking and amenities in collaboration with Bike Ped. Bike Ped would do it in collaboration with each commissioner, and then put forth recommendations. So your budget this year really shouldn't have any bike racks in it, because unless that evaluation takes place before you submit your budget, because until figure out whether they're being relocated, reused, or whatever. So, and that's where, I guess, that's a perfect example of one of the questions of when this gets reviewed by Parks and Rec. I guess I was expecting somebody to say, yeah, we like that idea. Let's get moving on that. Because yes.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's get moving. So
Well, that's what I was.
we make an appointment. Let's go see those bike
Well,
racks.
I need to take this back
No,
to the
but
committee.
you see what I mean.
Right, I need to
it's-
take this back to our committee, and our committee needs to
Okay, so-
support this, because
But that's
we're
the
made
next-
up a little bit different. But
Right.
that's where I was wondering how the review process took place to say, yeah, we really like this recommendation, this should move forward, it doesn't have a cost, or it does have a cost, or this one, we just really don't like this one. So let's not put that in a budget, because this is really your budget that we've made recommendations for. So that kind of flows back to
I think it's,
my confusion a
yeah,
little
it's
bit.
rare that we would ever tell another commissioner, don't do that. It happens on occasion, but it's pretty rare.
No, I meant us. Don't
Oh, you,
do that.
oh, okay, so as
You
far
can
as
tell
that
me
goes,
not to
so
do that,
here's
it's
my
okay.
question. So Anne's getting ready to write up an ask for 3 years, 1 year plus 2. So if she really thinks we need bike racks, shouldn't she put them in the budget, knowing that part of the process is going to be coordinated with Bike Ped? But if she doesn't put the money in now, it's not going to be there.
Well,
You absolutely
Marty,
can, but there's no guarantee that we're going to recommend that those
I
bike
know,
racks
but
go there.
we have
and
to
then
start
it's
someplace. Otherwise, we'd be waiting another 3
No.
years until we got the money.
Marty,
don't
I
think
think
you're
the
getting-
whole point of a subcommittee like this is exactly to have this sort of discussion.
Right.
And I like the idea of collaboration, and I want to bring up something later if I can. But I think that's a very good idea, that we go, we look at it, we say, okay, should we move it? Where could we move it to?
I
And
100%
should
agree
we
with the
put another one?
collaboration.
And to do this before, next
Yeah,
year.
if you need to do
Okay.
it, well, and if you need to do it for your budget, and there are certain parks, because not every park needs them.
Uh-huh.
So if you need them, then we respond quickly so that
Well,
that recommendation
In
gets
this
made.
particular example, I think we should respond quickly, because I don't think many bikes go there to block their bike, because it's not in a good place.
And I guess if I go back to some of the items that were recommended is from myself. I did not put specific recommendations of changes that should happen at parks, because I'm not a park commissioner, but the other side is, I don't feel comfortable speaking for our committee. I'm only one member of our committee. So I need to take things back to them and get input before I speak for the committee. So that's why ours is a bit more strategic than it is granular. So, again, appreciate that bike racks are needed, understanding that from a collaboration standpoint, we have a bike, we have to find ways to deal with all the bikes that are coming into Lewis. So it's not just at the parks. But also for Canal Front Park, for example, there is an, can't think of the word now, not accessibility plan, maybe, is that the term that Robbie has in here?
Yeah.
Where it talks about, and that's in the short term, 1 to 2. So if you're talking about that accessibility plan, which is improving the pathways, how people get around, what they access and what they don't access, that plan should incorporate where those bike racks go, because you're talking about how bikes and peds access that park. So that's why I think that some strategy is needed in that. In other parks, not so much, because they don't have all that going on.
Well, now that you're raising this, I wasn't sure what you meant at the bottom of page 25 when you say, create a working group for Mary Vessels Park, and that's such a little park. So if you could explain a little more about why we need that.
The reason I suggest Mary Vessels Park as a working group is because it was brought to our attention that the bike parking needs to be improved at Mary Vessels. In the course of that conversation, we understood that there was some discussion about whether a tree would be removed, that the city might be taking out the change machine. There was also some discussion, if you read about in here, about getting rid of grass and that it would only be pavers and things like
I don't
that.
know where that came from, actually. Where did that come from?
But again, so hang in there for a sec.
Okay.
So again, that's 4 people already kind of being asked for their opinions of Mary Vessels. So my suggestion as a working group is, instead of doing things in silo, that you put that working group together to deal with the future of Mary Vessels.
Right.
So that's where that came from.
It would be helpful to have a list of the issues that you know of that are out there.
They're in this document throughout, is where I sort of pulled them.
I'm going to jump in again and say, similarly, for the storage racks, that I think I should work with the Environment Committee on that, because the whole idea is protect the dunes. And I mean, I see here that there are creation of working groups. There's one here on page 25. Kay, you mentioned one on page 16, number 1, develop a Friends of the City Beaches. I had that idea this morning. I thought we should have.
That's a dream. I was in on, no, believe me, I was in on the development of Friends of Cape Henlope in State Park. So I know what it is to develop it, maintain it, keep it working, keep it staffed, keep the communication going. That is mostly, I think, predicated on, say, things like number 9, I have monitor the trash situation. If the city budget at some point comes to a point where we can't have trash pickup anymore on the beaches, and we're going to carry in, carry out like the state parks did, then I think if that ever comes to pass, then I think having a friends group to have somebody kind of assigned to trash pickup, monitoring things, I think would be a nice idea. I will have to be retired to do it, because I can tell you what went into that other founding of the group, and to keep it going. That is a heavy lift. It sounds very easy, and it is not. And I understand that, but I think once I'm retired, I might be able to swing it if that ends up being of interest to the city, because I realize there's an MOU, I would assume, between a proposed friends group and the city, as far as duties, responsibilities, and so on. So that's why I have that there, because at some point, it's possible. It's at the top of my list. That doesn't mean it's number 1 in my list for budgets or realistic. I couldn't do it until I retired. I can honestly say that. So,
I was thinking after yesterday's conversation at Parks and Recs that actually maybe it should be sort of a concerted effort with different actors to get these, to get the dunes protected. And maybe there should be a group called the Friends of the Dunes. There should be maybe another group, Paddleboarders of Lewis. Maybe, different groups, not only the responsibility of Parks and Recs, and of course, environment.
okay, so Janet, how can we get this together for you in time to help you meet an October 15th timeframe? We can do it. I just need to know how to do this efficiently, because I thought this report was an aggressive timeline. So this is far more aggressive. And I also, I don't want people to go to rush and then have regret that they didn't take more time. But I think are we going for October 15th?
I think what would be important, and I don't know that it's for this committee, I think it's for Parks and Rec, but I think what we need is to know what Parks and Rec wants to do short range. I mean, I can, and they don't meet again until the 21st.
Right, so we need to do this by email to you, right? You need this, do you want me to gather it? How is it helpful but not bombarding, or?
What? You can send it to you, yeah. I think that if, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I've been trying to wrap my brain around it.
Well,
so,
yes, and I can only imagine, just knowing just even this. So what we're concentrating on is 26, 27, and 28 for October 15th.
Correct.
Okay.
And what I think is that not everything that is in this report needs to go into 26, 27, 28. And maybe nothing in this report needs to go into 26, 27, 28, because it has to go to mayor and council. So, I think maybe that's,
Well, what if, let me ask Janet, what if the commissioners were to look at the top 3 priorities for 26, 26, and then 27, and then 28, and budget that way of the list that they've already made, so that this is a document that can be used?
Right, I think, so what we need to do is, or how do you see this? We need to contact everybody on Parks and say, ASAP, you need to review what we have in this document and pick out for the 3 years we're talking about, and then you would determine if it's actually a budget item.
or, yeah.
Right. And so if it turns out it's a to-do, but it's not on the budget, that's fine. It still stays on the list. It's just not a budget item. Because those might be activities that people want. But, or it's a priority to improve their park, but not on the budget. So that would be okay, too. It's not like that's a problem.
Right.
If everyone got that to you, is today Tuesday?
So what has happened is, because I start talking to the commission early about budget process, and when I had that conversation, we were we were doing the budget the way that we've done it, right?
Right.
Just 1 year. So now, mid-process, we're shifting, and we've accelerated the timeline tremendously. So I can just do projections from the current budget that
Right.
we have.
Right.
And if there are particular items that the commissioners need in this year's, in FY '26, that's what I need to know, '26, '27, '28.
Okay.
What do you mean by particular items?
A new fountain.
Yeah. A fence needs to be replaced. Because when the commissioners do their budget, they have specific requests within their budget line. So if I go off projections from this year's budget and bump it up 5%, 3%, I can do that. But if you have a very specific project that needs to be done, and maybe it's in this packet, that's what I need to know.
Okay.
So, Janet, you want expenses and capital projects, or just expenses?
Well, capital projects I would forecast out.
Okay, all right.
So, what do we do about, so in my opinion, personal opinion, the most important thing that we have in all of Parks and Rec is fixing Blockhouse Pond. Because if we don't fix it soon, we won't have, we won't have a path around the pond pretty soon. I think we have a short number of years to do it. And it's going to take BPW and I don't know who all, DENREC and EPA, I don't know who all is going to get involved, Army engineers, I don't know who else. But it's going to be a big project, and it's not going to be Parks and Rec. It's going to have to be, Parks and Rec will have a part in it.
That's
but
a capital. It's going to be a capital.
Big C capital, and it's got a lot of players.
All capitals in
And
capital.
It's going to have to be.
It's screaming capital.
With an exclamation point.
It's going to have to be managed at
It's
City Hall.
bold capital,
It's
capital.
not something that a commissioner can do all by
Bold caps,
themselves, you know?
exclamation point,
Yeah,
underline.
yeah, many Cs, meaning, like, huge font capital. So how do
You
we,
guys have to get past the
I mean,
capital now.
we actually, I would like to have a way to really present that as, this is the big kahuna here. And I personally think we really need to get started on that, because it's going to take a lot of planning before any shovels are put in the ground. And we'll probably have to get permits and all kinds of stuff to do whatever needs to be done.
The wheels are moving on that.
Are they?
They just
Okay.
are
Are they?
slow. But yes, the wheels are moving.
I would really like to juice that up some, because I'm afraid for our park, actually.
It's a major project. We've done a walk around with Envirotech.
Right.
And they're putting together, I actually need them, they need to come and talk to mayor and council, because it's a huge project.
I would love to see that highlighted somehow, just to keep it on the tops of everybody's mind, that,
That's
This is a
why I
very big
asked
deal.
Envirotech to come in and,
Yeah.
do a presentation for mayor and council so that they can understand the magnitude of it.
right.
So that is rolling. So I think we can feel.
Slowly.
So we
Well,
ought to
it's
talk
not
more
a
about
matter
that
of,
and describe, maybe have another page just describing that. And, yeah, and all the different players that are, yeah, okay.
so in the meantime, in a week, do you need the data from everybody on Parks and Rec? Is that enough time? Do you need it by the weekend? What?
No, a week is fine.
So, today is the 17th.
17th.
So we'll say by the 25th, everyone gets, or 24th?
So this is things that are beyond routine, that are,
I wouldn't even think of it that way. I would pick your top three or whatever things for 26, 27, and 28.
I
And
don't
then-
even know how, I can't pick top three. I'm going to give you it all or nothing, because I wouldn't even know how to
Well,
break
then,
it
Jan,
down.
but be
Well, Mar-
kind, because they're going to have to go through it ASAP.
Yeah.
Because then, if some of those things are just power washing, might be important,
Yeah,
but if it's
okay.
something that can be moved into a no expense category, that would be great.
I can,
And so if we all can do that by the 24th, and submit to Julia. And,
And also to clarify, these are just, the normal year-to-year, budget expenditures, not the big projects that would be recommended as capital projects. This is just, instead of this year's budget, it's just, okay, this year, next year, the year after, what do you see, what do you project? So you have your normal cost, and then what projects do you see could be completed within, pretty much the constraints of the existing dollar amounts that you have to work with. Yes.
okay. So is that enough of a help to get you where you need to be with this? If we do that?
Yeah, I think, again, there's two different things here, right? This document, or a version of it, has to go to mayor and council for review on our short-term, long-term plans, right?
Yep.
The more immediate part of that is getting items from here, if the commissioners want it in 2026, to get that into, or 27 or 28, to get that in there,
Okay.
so that we can work those numbers.
And oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Marty, just following up on what you had said before about Blockhouse Pond, if this document is going to be a document that goes to mayor and city council, then maybe that's where you want to really elaborate about, because there is a reference to it in the paragraph, but you got to dive in and read it. So maybe that is the area where it really gets pronounced.
Yeah, I would, if we already have something written up that we could drop in there or something, that would be great.
What are you looking at?
Page 9, there's a reference to pond rehabilitation
Oh, right.
in the text, and then, but I think if it's, even though it is a conversation that's ongoing, but if you're going to call it out, and this document's going to move forward, it ought to jump off the page, I would think, in here as well.
So, Councilman Ritzert, a question for you. Looking at this document that's been handed out, what are your first thoughts as far as what council would want to see from this document?
First of all, I think it's a good start. And I think that having this document provided to council will be very, very helpful as, if you will, background information, and also it will help us understand the enormity of the needs for the whole park system much better than having, again, it's that idea of committing to the concept of a system rather than individual parks, right? So this is very, very helpful. I actually think that it's possible to go through this document and see the short-term goals, and as a council person, and to understand what each I'm thinking about the short-term goals. It would be very easy for me, at least, to figure out, well, which ones I would commit to for the next 3 years, if that makes sense. And so I think there's a lot of value to be extracted from this document, the way it's been prepared.
So, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, please, go ahead.
I'm wondering
Yeah,
a format.
the format
Because-
itself.
Yeah, because the way it was compiled is that each commissioner sent
Right.
material to Kay, and then Kay and Marty kind of formatted it without not wanting to lose any of the content. So you
Right.
have all these different formats.
Right.
Is that confusing?
I personally don't find it confusing, but
I
that
just want to
might
put
be
forward
me,
the best
you know?
document that we can to mayor and council.
I think
Right.
you hear the different voices in it, certainly, because some people are very, you hear very precise, or you'll see a very relaxed, you can, as you're reading, you can see who wrote it, and you can tell. And that's, I think, got its own charm.
Yeah.
And each park is different as well.
And it's
Some are
reflected in
precise,
this.
some are imprecise
Right.
by their
Right.
nature.
I kind of like, in the early part of this conversation there, and I forget who made the suggestion, it might have been Mary Linda, I'm not quite sure at this point in time, but there's a discussion about possibly creating that Excel spreadsheet kind of document. Do you remember who said that, made that suggestion?
I suggested that you have a list of short-term, but this is before I knew about the budget, but the 3-year
Right.
by park, and then you could subtotal what they are by
Right.
year, and then the 4 to 5 expenditures that are listed in here. And I think there's some that are ranges of estimates, and I think that's
Right.
fine. So you would say fiscal year 26, 27, and then
Correct.
the parks are here, and then the expenditures across, and then subtotal them, and then do the same thing for the next 2 years.
Correct. I actually think, I think that could be a very useful tool for council.
That's just the bean counter in me coming
Well,
out.
Yeah,
but I-
no,
but
but
I think-
I like that.
I think this is
It's short,
everyone's kind of emotional
I mean, this-
reaction,
Yeah.
and then you're going to have a
No,
number
I-
page. And I think that's
got
very
it.
helpful.
It's
It's
just
like,
we're not going to have.
Our actual budget request is an Excel
right,
not gonna
spreadsheet.
this is where all of our
costs for
personalities come out, and then it's like, okay, now
I
we've got to
can
get
do
it into
it
a format
for
that
December.
Janet can use to take forward to mayor and council to see where we're going.
Correct.
So I think it will be two things. It will be the financial summary of 26, 27, and 28 with this as support.
Yes,
And I think
This
so
is the
it will
backup.
be two very different things.
that's correct.
And I think it's nice to have the report, I think, will be very helpful in
I
viewing
agree with that.
how it gets boiled down to what we're going to ask for versus the pie in the sky, because it's like, put the kitchen sink in there, and then, okay, now what can we really ask for?
Janet, were you going to say something, offer something?
Well, I just wanted to go back to what Mary Linda is suggesting, and I think that we can do that for mayor and council when this is presented as the executive summary, but not for the October 22nd.
Right. Well,
But
that's right.
yeah,
That's what I was
okay.
talking
I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that
Yeah,
that
and I
was
was
clear.
speaking
I
as
agree
that
with that.
person receiving the
Right.
document as a council person.
Right, so
yeah.
it would be like an executive summary spreadsheet of this document.
Right.
And then you would also have this with all the meat and potatoes in it.
That's how, I think it would be very helpful. Yeah, I appreciate the effort that went into creating this and the formatting of it and so forth. It's well done, I think. Yeah, I appreciate it.
There's a lot in there.
Yeah, there is a lot.
People have great enthusiasm for their purview.
Well, we
and it
said,
should.
give us your wish list, tell
You
us
got
what you
it.
want to
Right.
see.
You got it.
Right.
And we
So-
have it.
Right, okay. So, should
But may
I?
I just, excuse
Oh,
me
go
for
ahead.
jumping in here. The weight of our statement that Marty made with respect to the need for Blockhouse Pond and its need for rehabilitation, that made me kind of sit up. I mean, I knew generally we have a problem over there, but I don't know all the details of it. So I'm not undermining anything that you said. I'm respecting what she said. And if that is in fact the highest priority that we have throughout our park system, then I'm looking forward to being educated about that and, what it's really going to take to accomplish what we need to accomplish, because I'm not well informed right now. I have a general appreciation of the, what I call erosion problem. I don't know if it's more than that, but it absolutely makes sense in the as recommended here, that the improvement to the paths not take place until after.
Right.
That, what I'm calling an erosion problem, I don't know what Envirotech would call it.
More or less it, more or less, give or take.
The banks are falling,
Was falling?
the banks.
Yeah,
They're-
collapsing,
yeah.
that kind of thing, right. So, yeah.
And one thing
Anyway.
I would be interested in, and I don't want to cut you off, but it used to be EPA and Army Corps of Engineers would take a great deal of control over something like that as navigable waters, but I know there's been a change in what navigable waters are, so I don't know
You
if
know
it
who I
makes it
would
easier or harder or what.
You know who I would expect to be part of this, and
Yeah.
they haven't been mentioned, is the Sussex Conservation District.
Right.
They should
Yes.
have a very big,
Yes,
they should be a big player in that discussion, I would anticipate.
yes, I would
Do
think
you?
so.
No, I agree.
Agree?
I agree.
also-
I'm meeting with them tomorrow.
I can also volunteer my husband, who was in
Yeah,
charge
there you
of
go.
Blockhouse Pond for many, many years, and when he inherited it, it had issues, and he, did work. He was there every day after work. He and Jack Scholes, Jack well into his 90s, was over there with shovels and trimmers working on it. So if you wanted to ask him as well,
That would be a
how
great
things were
resource.
then and what's happened in the meantime to cause issues, I'm sure he'd be
That-
happy
thank you.
to also,
That would be invaluable.
because he goes over there all the time.
Wonderful.
And so,
Thank you,
Yeah,
Kay.
I'm sure that he would be willing to help out.
Yeah.
Okay, so should I send out this email tomorrow that says what we need? Or is it better coming from you?
Actually,
Meet first tomorrow,
yeah,
and then,
it should probably come from either Julia or I.
all right,
It will have the right
But-
language. I mean, I don't mind
Right.
doing it, but I feel like it'll have the right language.
Right.
It'll have the most specificity if it comes from you. And then it won't be like, oh, that wasn't what she really should have said. I don't want that.
and let
then to
Janet and
be-
I flush out some of what we need to flush out tomorrow
Right,
morning
right.
in a meeting, and then we'll have a better understanding of what details we specifically need,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So I have a question for Mary. Did I understand that the Bike Ped Advisory Committee that starts on 24, page 24, you're representing the committee, but you're taking this back to the committee for discussion with them to say, yeah, that's what,
I don't know that we're taking this back to vote on it, because I think we're all, it fits with our overall
okay,
mission.
right,
But
right.
I will share it with them
Okay.
as the representative from it, so yeah, it
So
can
we can.
stand as
we
is.
can-
yeah.
Okay, all right, I just didn't want to,
But that is why I didn't specifically make recommendations within each park.
right, okay,
And then also shared the goals from our bike plan, because we speak about wanting to work more collaboratively with city committees and other things. So that's why that's in there as well.
great,
And
great.
as we
I
are
love it.
working on infrastructure, having a sense of that infrastructure tying into what a park system might look like, there's no better time now that we're looking
Well,
at recommendations. So-
There is another commissioner here who talks about the interconnectivity and the parks. Christine always refers to the park system.
Yes.
And I think that what you're saying is we need to use that language and show those connections and really make it a system. And-
I'll just speak, yeah, from, and market it that way.
Right.
Understanding they're all unique, understanding they all have their purposes or users, whatever is the right
Yep.
term.
Yep,
But as a park system itself, to be able to work with others as far as, even for our committee, to have that infrastructure that safely connects folks from one to the other. That when you're mapping it and you're putting it out there, it's where the kiosk recommendations come from, that you're mapping the entire system, that you're not just talking about individual parks, that it is one big happy family of parks, so,
And for a
You
small
always have
community,
the-
we have a lot of acreage.
We have a lot, right.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I just very much appreciate, Mary, your always global view. I do.
It is helpful.
Yeah.
Well, we
I
get so
do.
focused on our thing.
Right.
And then this is where I'm saying, like, we've always been running in parallel, and now we need to intersect.
Right.
And to that end, Christine, did you want to speak up about anything, or you?
Yes, I did. If you were kind of wrapping up, I did want
If
to.
you want to come to the microphone,
And introduce yourself.
Yeah.
your name and address, please.
Yeah. And I'm going to set the clock.
She's standing for co-commissioner. My other co-commissioner is on vacation right now, so I'm going to speak for both of us when I say I appreciate all the work that you've done so far. It's been a lot. And, I think we're making a lot of progress. But I do want to mention that we do, to segue what you were saying, that we need to work together a little bit better, better communication, because I found that in reading this document that the Public Art Committee has proposed something for Stango Park that really, this is the first time I'm reading about it in a document, as opposed to them coming to me and saying, hey, Chris, what do you think about this idea or that idea? Stango Park does have a master plan.
It does.
And we've just completed it as of about a month or so ago. And it has a wonderful list of trees, mostly. Our plans for the park are to plant a lot of trees, of course. And
Where can we find that plan?
that plan will be presented to Parks and Rec at some point in time.
Early in
We had some-
October.
Maybe October. October's going to be a long meeting. I'm not sure if you want to do it then or not.
Janet's
but-
bringing dinner. Okay.
Right.
Takeout.
But that plan does not include some of the proposals that were made by the Public Art Committee. There are plans, there are areas in the park indicated for public art within the park, but certainly not some of the things one of the things in particular that they're proposing. And, they're projecting a budget for this when it's perhaps not even, it's not in our master plan for that area. So some of these things kind of need to be, kind of coordinated a little better, and that's fine. This is all part of the process, and I understand that. But
Do you have amenities in that plan as well, meaning bike racks and benches and things like that?
the second part of that plan will perhaps include bike racks, but at this point in time, it does not, because that area is where the Lewis Junction Bridge Rail Association installation is, and I'm requesting additional monies to develop a plan for that area that would perhaps include a bike rack in that area. But that's a whole other discussion.
So,
Yeah.
but while we're on that,
What-
because
yeah.
Stango Park, as I understand it, and then extended, is that whole section from behind
Right.
the library, the Verdon property, all the way over to Monroe. Am I
Correct.
correct?
Yes,
Right, okay.
Yeah,
So there is a master plan that exists for that whole property?
yes. Mhm.
Okay. And I guess that's where, understanding that we do need to work together, because we wouldn't be looking for you all to place bike racks or benches in there
Right.
without collaboration
Sure.
with us, outside of sort of Junction
Correct.
Break, that section.
Correct, yeah.
And then also sort of the trail connection, et cetera, as it relates to the pavilion and the rest of the stuff. And that's where I think would be really helpful
Sure.
for us to come together because of the
absolutely.
safety issues that
Sure.
exist now.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you tell me why you're here? Because I'm going to make it easy for me. Who put up the signs along the trail in the park that say, "Be careful, curve ahead"? Do we know? Does anybody know?
Are you talking about near the construction site?
No.
No.
Along the trail.
Can you say that
Right
again?
by the curve.
When you come in off of Kings,
Right.
come that way, before you get to the curve, there are two signs. One says slow something and one says something else.
I just saw them yesterday.
They haven't always been there, and I was curious about who put them up.
I'm assuming that they were put up by the trails, that didn't have anything to do with Stango Park. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
but
we-
the city,
You manage.
we manage
so
it.
they can-
So we maintain between Savannah Road and Gills Neck, the section of the trail that's in the city is maintained by the city through our agreement with DelDOT.
Also
So,
not typical signs that you
Right.
see. The color of them and the lettering is a little bit different.
So was
They're not
Somebody installed them
handwritten
themselves.
at
No,
all.
they're real
They're
signs.
Del-
real
I-
signs.
Yeah.
They're
They
orange.
look
I
like they
think
were
they're
installed by
orange.
DelDOT.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
typical signs you would
Right.
see, so I'm pretty sure they're not DelDOT signs.
I don't,
Do you know, so Delta didn't call or?
I
No.
don't think they're their signs. They don't look like any other
No.
signs.
They don't,
No.
okay.
I can reach out to the library and see
I was
if,
just curious. I
They
just
put
saw
'em
them the
in,
other
but-
day for the first time.
Because I know, excuse me for interrupting, but I'm going to anyway. It's okay. I remember during the discussion with the library folks with respect to their pavilion, that there was going to be signage associated with that construction that, you know, for the alternate paths, but this has nothing to do with that, right? Nothing.
No, we
You're
can look at
absolutely
it.
sure of that.
Yeah, no, when- things
someone took
happen
it
in my
upon
park all the
themselves.
time I don't know about, so that's my point.
Yeah.
Someone took it upon themselves to do it,
Okay.
it sounds
Yeah.
like. And so
And
that's.
it's not Mary's
that's-
Bike and Ped Committee didn't do it.
They
So-
might have bought signs off the internet. There's all kinds of signs you
Yeah.
can find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're in nice posts. They're in,
Wow.
Yeah, they're pretty,
And I
they're
think
they're
I've
new.
noticed
I've
those
it's
seen
nicely
it.
done signage.
Like within the whole bike loop, I've noticed a couple of those too. Like-
Really?
Yeah.
Where is this, Mark?
Where,
In, next time I do, I'll look specifically, but I can just remember it's like curve ahead and it's like, oh, yeah, all
Yeah,
right.
they're,
in the city?
No, outside of the city.
Oh, well, there are those, but they
Right,
don't look
right.
like these signs. They're
these are
different.
orange,
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
different looking.
Can I ask a question now? So
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to
Thank you,
reconcile
Chris.
Are
these
you done?
things.
Okay.
No, don't.
No, not to move
go
on,
away.
just to say
That's
thank you.
fine, I think I'm
You have anything
done
else?
making
This is
my
consistent
point.
with what
Thank
Christine
you.
was talking about. So specifically what Christine was talking about, and I alerted her to this, is
Yeah.
this talks about putting a big art installation relating to children in Stango Park, which really doesn't fit the scale of things we have, other things we have going on. But it is something, I think, I wish Barry was here, that we would consider maybe putting in Great Marsh Park. It's the kind of thing that we had talked about putting in Great Marsh Park eventually as we get approval and move forward. But what do I do with this here? Can I, in this, because I'm not sure I'd want to go to mayor and city council saying this is an ask and we don't agree with it.
Well, may I just jump in here and react to what you've just said? I think it kind of tags on with what Mary Roth was speaking of, and that is it's an opportunity for collaboration. It's an opportunity for bringing a representative or representatives, plural, from public art into the Parks and Rec Committee meeting, invite them in, and have that discussion.
I want to
That's
know
what I
what to do
think.
with this tomorrow.
Okay, well,
We don't
I
have the
would say,
discussion, this is the
I-
discussion, but what do I do with this tomorrow?
I would ask Cassidy.
It's
Okay.
already in there. Why would you take it out?
I would ask
Because it's a
Cassidy.
no, we're giving it a hard no.
You're saying it's a no.
But I would ask Cassidy.
You're saying no, that,
Or
We're saying that there's no room for it in the
I could
park.
talk to her, I could send her an email.
I would
And I
ask
could say,
Cassidy.
let's cross out Stango Park and put in Great Marsh Park. I could do that.
but,
No,
but you're not saying
No,
yes to Great Marsh Park because you can't do that either.
no.
I've been talking to Barry, I mean, but I would put in.
It can't be an I.
It's not a fiefdom that you're running,
Right.
each one,
It has to
But
right?
we said that this was, it's a flow, it's going to change all the
Yeah.
time. It's in transformation,
Right.
constant transformation.
Yeah.
So you're not going to start censoring.
Look, this
I
isn't-
would ask
this isn't a-
Cassidy. I would
This
ask-
isn't a new thing. I mean, this has been in the master plan for Great Marsh Park, all the drafts. I mean, it's not a new concept.
Well, I would tell Cassidy about Christine's master plan and that efforts from public art need to be in coordination at the inception of an idea with the park, whatever park, including Christine's. And she should speak to Barry to see if he would prefer that Great Marsh Park be there. I think I think there needs to be, they need to communicate,
I think they
and
should
Cassidy
just
needs to
get
write it.
together.
I disagree with that, because if you're going to do that for Cassidy, you have to do that for me. Because I didn't meet with each park commissioner and find
Right.
out what they wanted to do.
Right.
We were asked to make recommendations.
This is
You
their
can
vision.
kick them back, and you
Such
can
a short
push 'em.
timeline.
This is the next step.
This is the next step. It's not fair to say, well, no, you can't have that now. That isn't the role that we were given. That
Well-
wasn't the ask.
So at our next Parks and Rec meeting, we're going to have this report, whatever form it's in by the time of that meeting, to discuss among the Parks and Rec commissioners to see if we have consensus about moving it forward. Is that right? Okay. So there's still time to write or revise. I know Mark has a couple of revisions. Others may as well. I think we kind of need to have a last call on that, but I think Cassidy and Christine should speak.
Sure.
And Cassidy could submit a revision,
Okay.
even if it's, we have this idea, but we understand that it has to
I
be.
don't know.
It
I mean,
has
I'm
to be in.
However you want to work, it's
It
fine
it
with
has
me.
to be in alignment, in this case, with the master plan.
You're taking apart the process.
Right.
You're taking apart what we've spent the last 6 weeks doing.
No,
Well,
we're
I
not
don't-
doing exactly what
and
we've been
that-
talking about.
When we started this meeting at 5 o'clock, one of the first questions I asked was, is this document, is Parks and Rec going to look over this document and say, this is staying in, this is coming out? And the whole conversation went, no, we would never tell somebody what to do in their park, et cetera, et cetera. So that whole conversation went around about, no, it's a draft, we're moving it forward, we're going to work with it. Okay. Now, an hour and 15 minutes later, you guys are taking stuff out of the
I'm
report.
sorry, I
No.
forgot about this issue, and I apologize for that, because,
So you got to take my stuff out too
no,
then.
no,
That's
no.
what we're
take your
doing.
side out.
No, because Christine has a particular issue, and I think Christine and Cassidy can talk about it, because
just-
that's
Then
not
you need to look at, then you need to look at my Stango Park stuff too, because I
don't
was
think
not aware,
anybody's-
nor was Cassidy, aware that a master plan for Stango Park existed. So we can't
one
be
has seen
held
No, but-
responsible to a hypothetical master plan that we don't know exists.
But nobody's asked me anything, nobody's come to me and asked me either.
Because we weren't, that wasn't what we were to do. We were to put forth our
Okay, all right, I
ideas.
know this is all part of a process, and, we need to work
I mean,
through it
this
in
is
some
a-
way,
This is
so.
a new.
And it's new.
Finding our way.
We're finding our way. We're all
I think we
getting our
have
feet
to,
wet.
I think we have
And-
to accept the sort of
In
ugliness.
fact, the other thing Cassidy has in
And
here.
it's not perfect,
Yeah.
and that it's going to
It's
move
not, we're
on.
going to evolve as we go along.
I mean, I
we
didn't
need
know
to- I don't-
anything about Stango Park,
But the-
about the
But
pond.
the other things in here that Cassidy has are continuations of stuff that's happened before, like we find a pad, we find a place to put something in Canal Front Park, we find a place to put something in George H.P. Smith Park, and that's happened several years in a row now, and same. It's just when, here's a huge art installation we plucked down in the middle of Stango Park, which is really, that's a big deal. It's a different deal. But no, the stuff you have is, I mean, it's all about collaboration. We have these issues and we need to get a work group together. That's a whole different, that's a completely different thing than let's put this big installation in Stango Park. That's a very different thing. Let's have a work group and talk about it. That's all good.
Okay, so our task for next week, you'll send it an email tomorrow, and we will respond very quickly to Julia with our 26, 27, and 28.
Budget.
Yes. We will all look over this report, turn in any changes. Can I say to Marty, since you have the master version now? To Marty. So you'll turn in those three those edits that you have. And we will have a final call so that we have a version that Janet and Julia can use as a
But it changes
basis.
to me by what time? What day? Let's do a day or something.
I
We let Chris sit down.
I can sit down now.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah, don't turn your back on them.
She's running away. She's running.
Aren't you glad you came?
I am so glad.
Let's, in that same week, let's have it done by next week. Let's have everybody have a week to just finish this up.
Next
so that-
week,
yeah.
Tuesday, close of business?
Yep, and then, because Janet and Julia need something to go on, then we have something firm to talk about at our next meeting of Parks and Rec,
Okay.
and we'll go from there. Does that help meet your needs, Janet? What else can we do to help?
We will let you know. We will be in touch. Stay tuned.
And, because we're here to provide whatever we can. I realize the target seems to be moving,
Well, it is.
and
Yeah.
that we are just volunteers. So I just wanted to gather whatever I can now and ask everybody now for anything, because we won't be meeting till after you need this.
I think we've been talking about this. We'll do our best.
Yeah,
We'll do our best to send you the
reasonable, rational.
projects that are priorities, et cetera.
Yeah, so we'll send an email out tomorrow, and then,
For budget requests.
right, okay.
For budget requests.
And then-
Yes.
I want to make sure that's clear.
Excellent. And then, Marty, will you send one out to ask for everybody to final word on this document that will be used as support for the budget matrix that you all are creating?
And we just ask that if there's another version of this document, if you can
Oh, yeah.
circulate it as well,
The
please.
one called the 17th version 2,
That's what-
so far. So I made some notes
Look
about.
for future versions.
Marty, can I ask you to include all the dates of the drafts that go out on the document?
That's helpful.
Yeah.
It's in the header.
No,
No.
but to
All
revise.
the other ones,
Every time it was revised as a
Oh.
draft.
right,
They should all be on the document.
right.
I've never done that before, ever.
Okay.
In 40 years in the federal government, I did.
Yeah.
If you want it that way, I
This
could
is
try to do
Lewis
it, but
government. It's
Yeah.
not the same
State
as
government
Lewis.
does the same.
I could try to do that every time it went out the door, huh? Every time it went
Yeah,
out
it
the
would be
door.
helpful, yeah,
No, I haven't.
Yeah, because this is actually like the third version.
yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It may be more than that, I'm not sure, because there's some drafts I just shared with Kay, and then something else came in, so
Okay,
I could try to do that.
thank you.
So after this, we'll meet quarterly next year.
I-
I think, well,
Well, we'll see.
well, I don't know if this goes back to Parks and Rec in October, if they don't move it forward to go to mayor and council, it might come back to a committee.
Okay,
So I would
we may meet one more time.
stay tuned,
Okay,
Right,
okay,
right?
all right.
right.
Well, I can't thank everyone enough, because I know this has been a lot, and I'm glad that we're able to help move everything forward. And do we have any other questions? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No one wants to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.